La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.
You know what day it is? Inner Wealth Podcast. Meditate and give. So manifest the greater this. And things all good cause I say it is. Invest in your inner wealth. Real generational wealth is mental health. It's an inside game, no toxicity. Let's talk and more listening. Ladies and gentlemen, and now introducing David McCullar, founder of Inception, the first mental health gym.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Inner Wealth Podcast. I got a special guest here. I got my boy, Clever, here.
What up, though? What up, though?
What up, though? From the D, man.
Yes, sir, man. First, I want to say, Dave, I'm extremely proud of you with the podcast. Like, I've been tuning in. It's been great watching the episodes. It's just everything you've been doing with the Inception brand. Everything you talked about is coming into fruition, and you killing it, man. Congrats.
Oh, I appreciate it. When you in it, you don't feel like you killing it. When you in it, you feel like you getting killed. You know, everybody on the outside, though, you know, they see it as something different. But I appreciate it, man. And just to let everybody know, Des here, when I first met you, I think I found you on IG.
Mm-hmm.
And I just reached out to you, man. I was like, yo, come on in and let's see if we got some synergy together. And man, you came in and dude, ever since you came in, I've always known you always want to come and try to add value to a situation.
Appreciate it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, where can I add value? And Dad's is always like, man, I just want to add value, man.
Yeah, because I'm real big on that. And what you had when you first reached out to me, like, it wasn't really a way to really explain Inception to somebody because mental health, number one, in our community is not something that was hugely promoted or Black people needed to get involved with. You was like, yo, just come in and check us out. So I came in, tried the services. And like I said, I'm like, wow, more people need to be exposed to this that look like me.
Right.
And people in my circle, I have a following that people that support and trust my opinion. So I'm like, I want to be able to share this with as many people that look like me, that's going through things. And I, appreciate you for allowing me to be able to be a part, of the Inception family and bring people in. And everybody I've brought in has fell in love with Inception.
I mean, you brought damn near the city. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it got me on the radio, brought the city in. So I always appreciate you, man. I always try to, I always think about you in anything I'm doing. Like, how can I add them to what I'm doing to uplift you? And, I just came back from InvestFest.
Okay.
With Earn Your Leisure's InvestFest. And what I experienced out there was being in Atlanta. I haven't been back in Atlanta I was out in Atlanta maybe in 2005. I mean, other than going to the airport. But what I noticed out there, and me and you talk about this quite a bit, is that out there, and I'm sure some people don't do this, but they collaborate, man.
Yeah.
They collaborate, and a gentleman by the name of Lynn, who actually is a client of mine, who put me up in his Airbnb and hosted me while I was out there, which was great. But he was showing me like every business, like, yo, this black owned, and every one of them was like, wow, that's black owned.
Yeah.
So I came back from that whole situation, just energized. And I thought about you when I was out there because it was one of that things that we always talk about from being in Detroit is, are we collaborating with one another?
Yeah. See, what I think the advantage Atlanta has over a lot of markets is pretty much what Atlanta is opportunities in abundance. And like here, and as a Detroiter, we feel like I only have one opportunity. So it's like, no, I can't collaborate. I got to figure it out on my own. I can't allow for somebody to come in like PTSD from collaborating, working with somebody and your ideal, gets taken away from you or whatever. So we focus on that, but we're getting a lot better because there's a lot more opportunities coming here, a lot of light on the city. So I think we're in a good space, though.
Yeah. And I always look at mental health in that regard, because that's what you
Mhm.
just said. So I got PTSD from working
Yeah.
with somebody, so now you scared to work with somebody. You don't want to share something because you want your shine, and you don't want nobody to take your shine, and it's all understandable. But at the same time, man, it's like there's like where there's lack,
Mhm.
there is major opportunity.
Yes.
So again, but from my experience with you and everybody you brought in, everybody been cool with me, man, so, and then too, we found out too that we had a longer history that we didn't even know about.
Yeah. Corinthian Baptist Church.
Yeah, that's my uncle Joseph Jordan, who passed away some years ago. That's like a big staple in my family, and to come to find out that your mom and my cousin were like real close to each other. So I was like,
Mhm.
what?
Full circle moment, man. So I don't believe anything's by accident. So it's like the dots get connected and come full circle.
Yeah. So how'd you get the name Clever, first of all?
Okay, so originally when I started, my government name is Desmond Lester. So when I
Mm-hmm.
started working in radio, I started working for WJLB back in the day, and my name, is Desmond, but it's also another Desmond that worked in radio as well,
Mm-hmm.
named DJ DDT. Shout out to Big Bro, but they call him Dez, and they would call me Dez, and they would be like, "Which one you looking for? The older Dez or the young one? Young Dez." So I was Young Dez throughout the station. I'm like, okay, you got Young Jeezy, you got all these people. I'll roll with it because that was the thing at the time. But I wanted to create my own identity, and I felt like I wanted a name that said something about my personality. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm always been the type of person to look at stuff creatively or from a unique way, not better, just with my own unique way. And people say, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's clever." And so I'm like, that's a name that embodies my personality. Like I feel like I'm a very intelligent person. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people tell me that, and I'm a creative person. So it was born clever. It was kid clever at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then, through conversations, even with you, I talked to you, I talked to my homie G-Raw, and he was like, "Man, you've been doing your thing long enough, man. You need to drop the kid." So I had a
Yeah.
little bow wow moment.
Yeah.
So
I had that conversation with you. I was like, man, this you
yeah,
gotta drop that. But
yeah. But see, it wasn't because like the Kid Capri or whatever. It's like I always have looked younger. I have always had a youthful look. So I look younger than what I was.
yeah.
But I get it when you get people younger than you calling you kid all the time. Like it's a little different. So it's clever.
Like Lil Wayne.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he always gonna be little though.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's more fitting. But
right.
but when you're a grown man and you want respect as being a grown man, you
Yeah.
got to drop the kid.
So when did you make the Clever Vision?
I made the Clever Vision in clevervision.com, which is my platform. It's a multimedia platform. We do sit down interviews,
Mm.
create content, interviews, web series, and a lot of comedy skits on there. But I created that in 2011. It debuted 11/11.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, it debuted on that day. Ironically, that was 10 years ago. But
Mm.
I created it because my background was in radio. I was working at WJLB. I worked at WJLB for 5 years, and I was producing. I was creating shows. I was Dr. Darius' show producer for like three,
How,
4
old were
years.
you?
I started in doing everything, and I was 19.
How so let's go there. Like how do you, being a 19-year-old, how do
hmm
you break into that? Like what even gives you the courage and the mindset to be able to say, I'm 19 and I can go work with these people?
Well, what happened? My very first job, just telling my age a little bit, was at Farmer Jack. So
Mm.
I was working at Farmer Jack, and I didn't go away to school my first year because we had a house fire. We'll get into that as well. So
Mm.
we had a house fire. I stayed home, and I went to Oakland Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And at Oakland Community College, you in the cafeteria, whatever, you get cool with people. So I'm in the cafeteria, and I met this brother by the name of Markel Lane.
Mm.
And we were sitting there talking, and another dude that I ended up getting cool with later on came in the cap. Well, I got cool with him from shopping. His name Joe. He created Joe's Coney Island, Joe Lawton.
Okay.
And Joe came in and he gave me a flyer to a party. And I was just like, wow, this is what I want to do. And Markel at the time, he told me, he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, man, I want to, throw parties. I want to get into that avenue, be on the radio, working radio. He was like, you want to do radio? I'm like, yeah, man, I always wanted to work with JLB. He said, funny story. 2 weeks ago, I just got hired at WJLB. And he was like, it's great. I interned for over a year. He was like, if you serious, man, bring me your resume down here, and I'll take it down there. I brought 2 copies of my resume. It was laminated, and he ended up getting me in for an internship with
Okay.
Chris Kelly. So I was Chris Kelly at WJLB, show producer, killed it, did everything, worked a year and a half with that. Then I went and worked with Dr. Darius and
Yeah.
became his show producer. That's a brief rundown.
So at 19, now you work with kids too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see for this generation? Why maybe they don't have the mindset to do things that you're doing at that age, or other people that we've seen growing up?
Yeah, I think especially as people, especially being melanated people, I feel like we're great at whatever we're exposed to. And I feel like a lot of opportunities and stuff, we really don't get readily exposed to it. Like it's like, why isn't many of us ice skating out here? Well, how many people that got ice arenas or access to
Right.
ice arenas? So
Right.
I think that's a big thing. Like I was blessed to be able to have the opportunity to intern. I met Mason when I was in the fourth grade. I met him at the Detroit Public Library, and he was like, "Oh, you can come up to the radio station," but I never got the opportunity to get there. But ever since then, it was always in my mind, like, I really want to check this out. When he gave me the possibility, like, I can go to the radio station, I can be there, it always stuck with me. So that opportunity always lit a fire under me to get there. So I was 10 at the time. Then by the time I got 18, 19, I was able to enter a radio station. So I think that's what it is, exposure.
Yeah. And I had a family member who was with Mason for some years.
Wow, really?
So that gave me, I had somebody to look up to in that regard. Like, oh, they're on radio. Okay, that's something I can do if I want to do it. But like you said, but now the game has changed where anybody can pick up a phone and do what they want to do. And we just off air were talking about podcasting, and you were mentioning something about Kev on stage. What was he saying?
Kev on stage, he got a dope soundbite from one of his interviews I seen. He was like, in order to be great in the podcast lane, you have to, or whatever you want to do, you have to get used to those times where nobody's paying attention to you, and you can't get discouraged from those times. You got to maybe do 20, 30 interviews or on your podcast and have less than 500 views and be okay with that and not stop.
Yeah.
Because it's the consistency, like that's the number one component I say in life.
Yeah.
Just being consistent and just making it a habit and keep going. Because eventually, I've never seen someone with a goal that never quit, that didn't get close to their goal.
Right.
It's always the ones that quit that never make
It's
it.
consistency over intensity. And
Facts.
some people, they want to come in and be very intense and have all this steam, but that fizzles out. It's better to run that marathon than try to come in as a sprint. So you created Clever Vision, and you also were doing something with comedy, right? And how was those things when you first started? Was it like that where you kind of had to, call it suffer through it?
Well, that's a great question. With Clever Vision, it was a little bit more difficult because that was early on when I started Clever Vision. So I had to get over the fact of like, okay, what I'm gonna do is gonna be one interview that take me out of here. I'm gonna bring in drones. I'm gonna bring in makeup artists. I'm gonna do live performances. I'm gonna do all that, and then the interview may get 500 views. So I'm just like, it's not the production value that you need to worry about up front. Make it as best as you can,
Right.
but make it as best as you can that's not going to hinder you and not going to stop the process. Because if you got 4 cameras, as you know, it takes longer to edit like stuff with major production behind it. So it was difficult at first to build the audience, but after a while it got better and better. And by the time I started the Clever Vision Going Up comedy show, shout out to my host, comedian Josh Adams, it was a little bit easier because I had been known for doing the interviews and stuff, and I wanted something to promote Clever Vision weekly and make people, watch our interviews and, check us out more. Log on to the website. I want you to hear that name in your head, drilled in your head every week. So that way you can be like, let me check out the website. So it was a little bit easier with that because, we had followings and it was cool and it was a niche at the time, like comedy for people that go to clubs in the city of Detroit. It really didn't exist at the time we were doing it.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember anything That was comedy driven. Other than something that was coming into town.
Yeah. Well, you had like Bakers on
Yeah,
Monday,
bakers.
but that wasn't really. And then you had They Say on Thursday, but that was like for the open mic. That was an open mic.
Mm,
And then you had Bakers on Monday. It was a comedy open mic, but those weren't the people that were going to the club. By me working in radio,
mm,
I met people from all walks of life and club goers, and I had those people. I had rappers mixing in with politicians, and those. It
mhm.
was just a beautiful like melting pot of people from all different backgrounds, and we had no issues. People just came out to laugh every Tuesday.
I've been to one of your comedy shows too, and typically when you go to comedy shows, it's always like back in the day how it was. It's like that wasn't that funny,
Hmm.
because it's like the talent didn't seem like they were as sharp.
Hmm.
But when I went to the comedy show, first of all, Josh is like hilarious, and
Amazing.
he should easily be on everybody's screen
Facts.
easily. So when I saw him and I watched him on Instagram, I'm always laughing at like literal laughing, not like
Yeah.
just because you know him,
Yeah.
but literally like, nah, that dude's hilarious. But one thing I was impressed about that, but I was also it was cool to see your mom there
Yeah.
and your sister there, and helping you with the event. Like how much do they play a role in what you've created over these years?
Oh wow, like huge support system. Like with my
Mm-hmm.
family, like as you know me, family is first, most important
Mm-hmm.
thing in my. But it's like really dope to have them like finally get and understand you, what you're doing, and see where you're trying to go. At first, I know my mom was probably looking at me like what are you trying to do? Like
Right.
I don't this you that's different.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she finally understand like, oh, I see where you're trying to go, and she tell me all the time, you got to write stuff down. You always keep stuff in your head. So I'm like, no, it's gonna work like this or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
when I start writing things down and where she could see them and understand it, like it's been nothing but support. Same with my sister Lena, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever way she can help my mom, like, and it's just like I could not ask for a better support system within my family.
So where does that creativeness come from within your family? Like who can you attribute that to? Who did you see growing up that sparked that in you or who helped you cultivate it?
Um, I really don't like my mom. She was independent. She was a graphic designer. Like during the
Okay,
during
so
the early points in time.
she was on Word, she was on Paint.
She not on Paint. What was it? Arts and Letters was the
Okay.
program at the
Yeah.
time. And she would do like the Baptist convention. She would do
Mm.
big things. She did stuff with Domino's and
Mm.
all those people. And I would sit down and she was like, "You want a logo that's clean and
Mm.
simple, but sticks out to people."
Yeah.
So I would sit down and brainstorm with her. Like I feel like that helped me out a lot. Like just being exposed to that, her
Mm.
being someone that was an entrepreneur at an early age, and seeing her be able to be successful with it. That was something that was contribute towards that.
And that's great because environment basically conditions you.
Yes.
And it sharpens you. So you had someone who was creative, and my parents are very creative people as well. But I wanted to go touch back on that logo thing for a second because we have people who are into the space of business. And again, I
Hmm.
met a lot of people who are out in Invest Fest who listens, who do business. And why is it that when we want to do a logo and we want to make it the busiest thing ever? We want to throw everything in there to make oh, I do this, I do
Right.
that.
Right.
But when you look at the big box brands, they are very simple
Clean.
and to the point.
Clean. Because I think we feel like every opportunity is our only shot. So
Mm,
when we do logos or whatever, like, oh, I want you to see this and I want you to be blown away by it.
mhm.
But it's just like if I can't read it, if you got font on the left, on the right, you got bells, it's bedazzled, you got all
Right.
that stuff. Like I don't know what I'm looking at, and I'm not
Right.
going to remember the name.
It has
Like
to be memorable.
yes, you want people to be able to read it. My mom said you want anybody from a 3-year-old to a 90-year-old to be able to see your logo and recognize it and be able to read it within the first 3 seconds.
I mean, look at Nike. It's a
Yeah.
little line.
Swoosh. Yep.
I don't even know what that line represents. I just know that people will kill people over it back in the day,
Yeah.
right? Well, look at Apple. It's a bite of an apple.
Yeah.
I kept seeing you look at my Inception logo. So it's like my old logos, like not Inception based, but my old company. Like I had all types of busyness going on. I got a brain in here.
Right.
And my mom's like, that looks pretty gruesome. I'm
Put a lightning bolt in there. Like, what?
like, but it just like at that time, you don't understand branding.
Facts.
And most people, it took me a while to fully understand branding. And I know you get branding and you understand branding. So what is branding for people to understand?
Brandon, like we go back to the word consistency, and you want people to be able to not really have to be able to explain. Like when you start having to explain something so much, you like, you know what, I need to brand this better. Like,
Hmm.
cause if I gotta say it's like, oh, I got a show, it's kind of like this show mixed with
Hmm.
this show mixed with that, da 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 da. Like you need to brand that better, and you need to be concise, and you need to narrow your scope and focus on one particular element, so that way you can get known for that. Like, so if you like, I got a barbershop with a restaurant in it, da 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 da
Yeah.
da da. Like, no, just I have a restaurant,
Right.
and this is my restaurant right here. We specialize in soul food. This is the
Mm.
food that we have. It's not we're not making quesadillas. We're not doing this. We're
Right.
doing this, but it's a narrow scope. People can identify. Oh, I know what soul food is. Okay, cool. Northern or southern? Southern soul food. So
Hmm.
people know where to come, and that's branding to me. It's just figuring out what you're doing, your target audience, and how to be consistently in their face.
And I don't know if you remember this, but when I first met you, think, I don't think I had to name the first mental health gym at that time.
Mm-mm.
I didn't. I was
No.
just Inception, but it was people were like, well, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a gentleman come, a potential investor, and he sat down with me and my mom, and he was saying, well, what are you? And I'm like a place I got floating. I'm naming all these tools, and he's like, "Well, are you a medical spa?" I'm like, "Yeah, we kind of like a medical spa," but then
Right.
doing what you just
Right.
said,
Look,
right?
man, just get in the float tank, and
I,
you'll understand.
I'm like, "Look, man, I just need the money. I don't need you asking me all these questions."
Yeah.
But my ego was hurt
Yeah.
because I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And the reason why I was hurt was because it was just like, well, you kind of right. Like,
Yeah.
but it made me walk away and made me think. And I found myself trying to put myself in something that already existed.
Mm.
Because I thought that's the
Mhm.
only way you can do that. So this is gonna be powerful for a lot of people listening to it. You don't have to put yourself in something that already exists. So I had to think about it and say, you know what? They coming out with all these names like the Gene Bar that
Mhm.
don't have nothing to do with a bar.
Right.
And I was like, well, why don't we just be? And I stopped playing around too. I was like, no, we're really dealing with mental health. So how about we be a mental health gym? And I
Facts.
sent that to my guy, Jason Wilson. He was like, coin that right now. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, because it's like everybody is familiar with a workout gym where you go
Hmm.
to lift weights or whatever. So like, why shouldn't it be the same thing for your mental health? Like you
Right.
need to work that muscle, and you need to do that.
And you saw
Yeah.
ever since that point where we had a real identity,
Mm-hmm.
the brand
Mm-hmm.
identity. We got the name, we got all the logo and all that stuff. But that name, that title, that identity just took us to a whole nother level. And I remember sitting in the office with you too, and you was like, man, you should try to get Charlemagne in here.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
We sat in that back office and you like, you should get Charlemagne. And I thought about it and I was like, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, how do we get to him? He was like, I got some people, but then
Yeah.
you know how that go.
Yeah.
Then somehow, some way, got him in there.
Yeah.
Well, he was looking for me.
Yeah.
I actually.
Bring it full circle. When he came to Inception, he was like, I found you because I looked up, I thought of the term mental health gym.
Mm-hmm.
And by that term, like he was able to see, wow, this guy has been reaching out to me. He looks like me, and he's in Michigan. And he was like, well, I'm going to reach out to him. And then you said, what, he DM'd you, right?
Yep.
So it was all about narrowing your scope and simplifying what you were doing into one thing.
He would have never found me if I didn't. And then too, I didn't just take the term, I put it into action.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went and added it to my meta tags on my website and the keywords and everything. And that's how we found it, was from going into action.
Yeah.
So there's always times where, when I met you, it was difficult. I was going through difficult times with Inception.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, they've gotten better. But so what are some of the difficult times that you've gone through in your journey, in your business?
Just overall, just feeling like, of course, in the beginning, like nobody really understood what I was trying to do, and I always have this thing where people limit my capabilities, but I
Mm.
realize people are so focused on their stuff. They don't, they're not optimistic like, "Oh, you could do that or you could do that."
Mhm.
You have to literally show people what you're capable of.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of times I struggled with like displaying it. Like a lot of things that I did were behind the scenes or
Mhm.
weren't in front of people. So when you do stuff behind the scenes like that, which is great, which is genius, but it's a little bit harder to get the support that you need because
Mhm.
people don't know. People don't know. They just come to a comedy show like, oh, this nice, whatever. But if you're not going on the stage, thanking people for coming out,
Mhm.
introducing yourself, whatever, they will never know that you were the brainchild behind it. So
Mhm.
that's what I struggle with, like just getting people to buy in. But
Mhm.
I'm working on it now, and I feel like the world hasn't seen half of what I'm capable of doing. But it's definitely on the rise, and it's just
Yeah.
like because I am a overall creative. Like
Mhm.
anything creative, my mind just works different in that way. Like that's a gift from God. Like
Mhm.
coming up with ideas, concepts, whether it's creating clothes, creating interviews, short stories, movies. Like I'm in the process of doing all these things. But a
Mhm.
narrow scope.
Right.
I'm starting off. I'm gonna relaunch Clever Vision. I took a break from it because we're doing the comedy show with COVID,
Mhm.
with all that stuff. It was difficult to maintain it. So I'm start back off doing with my interviews.
What are some of the inboxes you get from people? Because I know you get a lot of inboxes from people probably around the country,
hmm
or probably even around the world. What are some of the things that they reach out to you about?
They reach out to me about seeing a lot of the work that I do with the youth, like
Mhm.
with my nonprofit Vision for Change.
So tell us about that.
Vision for Change is a nonprofit. Well, I'm the oldest of three children. Like,
Mhm.
my father was incarcerated. I didn't meet my father till I was 13. My
Mhm.
mother has one brother that moved to Kansas. Well, she has two brothers. She has a brother in Nashville, Tennessee,
Mhm.
and one that moved to Kansas. My uncle Curtis that moved to Kansas. And I don't really have a lot of cousins, so a lot of stuff like real male role models, like I didn't really have a lot of those readily available to me. So
Mhm.
everything I had to learn was trial and error. I had to bump my head. I had to struggle in order to figure a lot of these things out as a man. Like my mom was great, did everything, but still as a man, like it
Mhm.
was difficult. So I'm like, man, it shouldn't have to be this hard. Like, why is it this hard? Then I look at my little brother that plays video games. I always use this analogy. When he would play video games, it'd be games like Metal Gear Solid that'd take me a month or 2 months to beat. But he'd beat the game in 2 or 3 days. I said, how the hell are you beating this game so fast? He said, I just go on YouTube and I
Mhm.
watch people, go through each board and beat it. I'm like, man, that's soft. That's whack. But I thought about it. It's like it's not really.
That's all that's
Right,
right.
right, right. Man, that's soft. You don't do that. You struggle, you die in the video game, then you
Yeah.
keep going and you rebuild it. But I'm
Right.
just like, in life, why does it have to be like that? Just
Mhm.
because one person struggled, like the next person should not have to struggle with those same difficulties, with the same problems you had. If you know me and we're close, I shouldn't have those same problems because you've been through it. You can say, look, I wouldn't recommend you going that way. I'll recommend you going this way. So that was like, yo, like I really wanted to use the wisdom and me falling and spread it to the next generation.
Mhm.
So I started Vision for Change, which is a nonprofit that helps youth ages 13 through 18, help them find out what their natural gifts are and
Mm.
how to turn those gifts and those passions into a career.
And to cultivate them.
Yeah, cultivate them and bring them around people that are like them.
Mhm.
So it's just like if you're making beats and you want to be a producer, well, do you know any established producers?
Yeah.
So have you ever been into a real studio? Like how are you gonna do this if you've never been exposed to the right people? You
Mhm.
can do it. It's gonna take you a lot longer, but to shorten that path, I'm gonna put you around the right people, that I've been exposed through working in radios. I know doctors, I know lawyers, I know real estate people. Whatever it is
Mhm.
you want to do, I know somebody that's close to it and
Yeah.
connect you with them.
And that's how we've learned the opposite way too. When you talk about generational curses,
Mm-hmm.
that's just you seeing the person play the video game
Mm-hmm.
and play it incorrectly,
Right.
but they don't learn because they
Right.
don't have somebody in front of them passing down that information that, you know what, you took a wrong turn, you know? So it becomes the blind leading the blind. But by what you're doing with your foundation, your nonprofit, is that you're giving people the tools and the visibility to see people like them doing those things. And now, oh, okay, I can see somebody do it like me. Now I can do it. And I think that's what people need to see. You know, we need to see more people who look like us. And that's why I reached out to you too, because I was like, man, who's this guy? Like, this some cool stuff he's doing. Because you did some stuff with Big Sean as well.
Like starting off with Big Sean, like working in radio, and you know, you see all the different artists. I seen he was talented. He was working. He had just started building a connection with Kanye West. But the city didn't know him like that. Like he went to Cass, and then he was like going back and forth to Chicago working with Kanye. But the city outside of the Cass people, like the quote unquote DJs and the big names in the city, didn't know who he was. So I would help connect them with those people. Like, whoa, this guy is talented. And like his first record, Fresh or Gonna Get You Some, I brought it to Dr. Darius, and I'm just like, yo, this kid is gonna be big. Like, you need to check his music out or whatever. So he played it, and he started growing and started taking off from there. So
you broke Big Sean.
I wouldn't say that.
You
I
don't
wouldn't
say
say
that,
that. I would say that.
But you were instrumental.
I would say
you played a hand.
I played a hand in being around him. So we were all learning during the time. And yeah, it was a dope. It was a dope.
Do most
experience.
people know that story?
No, a lot of people don't know that story. But and like I said, that's from back then, being in the background and just wanting the work done. It was just like I didn't do that for any notoriety. I did that because I would want somebody to do that for me.
Right.
If I need something and you have it and it's not gonna hurt you to share the opportunity, I would hope that it would come back and you'd be like, yo, Des, I got that, or I know this person. Oh, you need a truck to move a couch. You know what, my cousin has a pickup truck. Yeah. Just simple, just looking out for people.
I think our families are alike in that way, you know, because my mom and dad, even myself, I'm a natural connector. I'm gonna connect you. Obviously, you need to have some value somewhere sometimes, but sometimes it's just a connection, like you said. So you talked about you didn't meet your dad until you were 13.
Correct.
And you said that well, you said you didn't meet until you were 13. So how did that affect you, if you can go deeper into that?
I think early on with my father, like not really being around, like it was certain stuff I would second guess myself. Because it would just be like, oh, or I don't know if I could do this or whatever. Like I didn't have that. I didn't have my father to be like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can knock this out, you can do this. So I think that affected my confidence and a lot of stuff. And then like just I got a lot of that stuff like later on, like mid high school, 10th, 11th grade. I'm like, wait, like I'm actually that guy out here. So I started building that, and yeah, it was rough because I didn't know his whole side of the family. Like so I didn't know he was the only child, but I didn't know his parents.
He was a boxer?
Yeah, he was a boxer. He was a professional boxer. Went to the 1988 Olympic trials with Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. Like he's well respected, like for boxing in the city of Detroit with Crunk and all over. Like he was that guy, but he made a wrong decision and got incarcerated for selling drugs. And they gave him a natural life sentence in prison at 26. And he had never had a speeding ticket. So that was his first conviction. During the 80s, like they was like throwing the book at people, giving them football numbers, never been convicted. And like that, like was like, wow. Like, so I stayed away from anything that would get me in trouble. And I think, I guess that would be good PTSD. I would need you for the term that.
Good PTSD?
I don't know if that's a term, but I would say I stayed away from anything that would get me locked up because I was so shook and scared because I didn't want my mother to have to go to a prison to visit me.
Yeah, I think that can be, helpful at times. My parents grew up in alcoholic households, and growing up, man, I've never seen them ever take a drink. Smoke, take a drink, because they just was like, they saw the effects of that, and they didn't want anything to do with it. You know what I'm saying? So I guess, that could be. Trauma is helpful, man. People don't understand that.
Really?
Yeah. Trauma is not a bad thing. The bad thing about trauma is when you can't move on from it.
Mm-hmm.
When you're stuck in the event,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and when things hold you back from now trying things. So even though you experienced that, it was something that evolved you versus hurt you.
Yeah. And to credit to my dad, once he got out, it was rough because he had never been a parent, but
Mm.
we developed a real solid relationship, and I was able to bond with him through boxing.
Okay.
And
What age was that?
that was, I didn't start doing that till later on, to maybe like 18, 19.
Okay.
You know, so I did it because it allowed me to be, you know, close to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to do that. He was like, "Son, you getting good? You thinking about going professional?" I'm like, no. No, those punches hurt. And I think I'm a little bit smarter to just get punched in the head for money. No knock to any boxer, but it's just like, I'm creative. Yeah, I'm going to stick to this creative stuff because I'm not trying to get hurt out here. But no, that was something that was able to, you know, help build confidence as well. You know, be around professionals and go rounds with professionals in the ring and be able to hold my own to know that I'm enough at the end of the day. And that was something, like I said, that I struggled with and not knowing, but that was something that really helped and built my confidence.
Later on.
Yes.
Yeah. So what did you go and create after that?
After that, that's when I got the opportunity for radio. Like I got the radio around 18, then 19, and I'm like, wait a minute, like I got in radio, then I was able to get my dad interviews on the radio.
So think about that. Let's think about that for a second. If you didn't connect back to your dad and have those moments, do you think that would have propelled you into those radio spots?
I've never really looked at it like that, but I think that was that was significant. Like to be able to, it was the building of the confidence to be able to know that, and to know that anything that I want to do, I can make it happen. As long as it's in God's will, I can make it happen. So it's just like try, because you never know where you will get with a try.
How was your dad when you got him on those radio spots?
He did good. He was a natural. So like, David Lester is his name, but his boxing name was Showtime.
I never knew your dad's name was David too.
Yeah,
So it's like these connections between us that I didn't even know that. So that's cool.
Yeah. So he, you know, he was never shy of the camera. So he was like, he said, I'm like, why was your name was Showtime? Well, son, because every time I fought, it was a show. I'm like, okay. But no, he was great at boxing, and he did good with the interviews. My dad had been on 60 Minutes twice.
Were you his only kid?
I end up having a daughter, you know, after me. So I have a younger sister, you know, by him.
So how did that relationship, do you think it affected him and being able to spend time with you?
It was rough, and I felt like he felt guilty. Like he would say that he was guilty because he was like, "Son, like if you become great," he said, "I feel like I really can't take credit for that. Like all that credit goes to your mom. But if you fail, I take all the blame." I said, "But we're not gonna fail over here. Like we're gonna work. So just help me succeed, and we're gonna be good from there." It's just like, and that's one thing I realized too. Like dealing with trauma and past stuff, it's just like you cannot change the past at all. It's cliche, and you hear people say it all the time, but like you really have to get that understood, that whatever you went through, for the most part, you can't change it. And a lot of situations, it's not your fault. So it's just, you have to make the best of what you have in front of you, because you never know how long you're going to be here or your parents are going to be here on this earth. My father passed in 2013. So ironically, I didn't meet him until I was 13. Then he died when I was 26. So I got him to be in my life for 13 years.
That's dope.
So yeah, we shared a dope connection. I got to know the man he was. He got to see who I was and who I was in the process of becoming.
Yeah, I was interested in, and when I asked that question about, you know, how did he do with the interviews, I meant more so you getting them for him.
Wow,
like how did that make him feel, if you can speak to that?
Well, he was like shocked and was like, wow, like my son can really like help open doors. And I've never told nobody this publicly. Like when he passed away, he was in the process of connecting me with a friend of his that worked for ESPN. And he was like, I'm gonna connect you with Bob. He does like live broadcasts with ESPN, Friday Night Fights, and all those things. And
Bob Dapper, was that his name?
I got to remember what Bob's last name was.
Okay.
But after everything with Bob, No, after him connecting me with Bob, my dad passed shortly after that.
Mm.
So the next day, when after my dad, I finally got the news that my dad had passed. I called Bob, like, "Yo, Bob, I didn't know if you got the news, but my father had passed away." And he said, "Yeah, I heard. I was gonna give you a minute before I called you." He said, "But one thing I wanted you to know is that when your dad introduced me to you, he told me how much of a great, phenomenal guy, that you were, and
Mm.
how proud he was of you as a person." And that was the first time like I had broke down because I'm
Mm.
just like, man, like I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and I really wanted him to see me like all right to where it's successful to be able to get him the new car he want, put my mom in the house, or
Mm.
make life better for him. But he knew that I was a good guy, and I was determined, and
Mm.
that I was going to be successful.
Well, it
So
sounds like you already did all those things anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I asked when I'm looking at it from an outside in, like I'm
Mhm.
watching a Netflix show. Like I'm pretty sure that he felt that way already. That he's already talking to somebody at ESPN, and it's a great thing when when you can feel your parents being proud of you.
Yeah,
Because that makes them feel like they've done something.
yeah,
They've
yeah.
done something right. Even though a lot of times parents, because I don't think you're a father, are you?
No,
Me
no
either.
babies.
Right, same here. But I can get that sense right from them that they're happy to see that what I did something good even though I probably did a lot wrong.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, you can probably ask my mom. I would say something that happened to me in third, fourth grade, and she's like, "Really?" She still. I'm like, "Mom." I'm like,
I'm a grown man
"I'm like,
now.
right, really? Like, you still thinking about that?" I'm just saying that this happened.
Right.
So
And
that.
I think with I say this to a lot of people, like I want to have a lot of notoriety, but I
Mm.
don't want notoriety just to talk to women. I've never struggled like talking to women or to be considered cool by people.
Mm.
I want notoriety for influence.
Yeah.
Only people that I care about, I care about their opinion of me are my parents, my mother, my grandmother.
Mm.
I don't give a damn about like nobody else opinion of
Mm.
me. I just
Mm.
want them to be proud of me or whatever, or for them to see me doing all these things and caring about the person that I am. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want notoriety because with notoriety you create influence, and with influence I can make the right thing the cool thing.
Yeah.
So I can tell them like, no, you don't want to do it like that. Like, no, you don't want to be out here in the streets. Like that's not cool to go to prison. It's
Mm.
not cool to have 17 baby mothers.
Right.
Like, you want some structure to your life. Let me show you the right way to do it. And with
Mm-hmm.
notoriety, it makes it a lot easier to connect with people and for people to listen and hear you out.
Yeah, because people follow people who of some type of status.
Yeah,
And with that status, you have to lead people in the proper way.
correct.
You don't want to continue that cycle. And again, be the blind leading the blind, even though you just a blind person with some money. A
Yeah,
lot of people know you,
yeah,
but y'all all going to the path of destruction. So
yeah.
you mentioned your granny, and I love Granny, and you bring her.
That's
Granny
my
just
girl.
turned 91, right?
91 years old.
Yeah.
Ain't missing a beat.
So
Oh
happy
yeah.
birthday, Granny! And she came into Inception, and I love seeing her in there and doing the services because people always ask me, "Well, how old can you be?" I'm like, "Well, Granny just turned 91, so
91.
she in there doing her services, and she wants her youth. She wants to
Yeah.
keep her youth, and that's dope that you bring her, you take her, and you bring her, what, once a week or something like
Yeah,
that?
every Thursday, I make sure she comes into Inception. Like,
Mm.
cause once I started going in there, I was telling you about Granny. You was like, "Shoot, bring Granny in here."
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that she can come in and utilize the services. Like she does the salt therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps with her voice. Cause it's something going on like with her vocal cords. Like if she doesn't do that, like it's hard for her. Her speech isn't as clear.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps her a lot. She does the infrared sauna.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps her a lot with the blood flow and just keeping her moving, and then she does the magnosphere as well.
Yep.
So all the stuff she swears by it. She said, "Oh, D, we got to go to bed because we got to go to Inception in the morning." So shout out to Granny. She really really enjoys it, and I really see the benefits of her being in there. And like you said, any age,
Mm-hmm.
her being able to be 90, 91 years old, and that technology able to help her, and it's fascinating to me.
Right, and it's again, it's about the consistency of it. If you keep doing things, and you're gonna gradually get better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times again we just in an instant generation. We want stuff just to happen right now, but it's like, yo, keep going at it. And you know, you've been doing your thing for a minute, man. Like, and you just did this new project too with Cartier.
Yeah, that was a blessing. Shout out to a friend of mine, Nardo. Like that's one thing I'm big on is whether it's through interviews, through fashion, through documentaries. Like I feel like storytelling is key. Like that
Yeah.
means everything. You have to have a narrative, and I
Mm.
think Detroit is just as talented as your big cities from New York to your Los Angeles, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't do as good of a job telling stories. We're getting better at it. It's a
Mm.
lot of new young storytellers from the city of Detroit,
Mm.
but that's powerful. So Cartier reached out to my friend Nardo and was saying like, "Yo, who's a part of? We're a part of the same team. Like, yo, we're trying to tell Detroit stories. Like, Detroit is the number one market in North America for the Cartier lenses, like eyewear.
Man, I
Like,
would love to see their numbers.
yeah,
What do you think their numbers are?
it's stupid.
They
Like,
say
I
they
know
the number one.
that
In
Detroit is the number one market for eyewear in the
wow.
country.
Yeah, and that's all from us buying their stuff. We ain't got not one stock in that.
No, sadly, we
Yeah.
don't. But like before we get to that point, it's just like I was just hyped that we're able to tell our influence because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't even know that. Like you said, you just found that out, today that we're the number one market for eyewear. So
Well, I knew we
we
rocked them.
wear them.
Now,
Yeah,
I mean, I had a pair going back to high school.
yeah,
You talking about '98?
yeah,
And when I moved back from Florida, I was hearing people was getting killed for them,
yeah,
and I'm like, yo, that this became that, and now they still popular.
yeah. So when they reached out to us, they said we wanted to tell original Detroit stories
Mm-hmm.
and talk about the connection to the city and why these glasses are a thing. I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, if you guys want us a part of the project, like we have to tell the authentic stories. Like Blade Icewood was a significant part of making that brand what it is. Today he helped make them cool in the city of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, people in the city were wearing them, but when he put ice on his wood glasses, like that really put a stamp. So I was able to curate that whole story. I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to his son, shout out to Lil Blade, and I reached out to Payroll, and we
Mm-hmm.
came together and we talked about it. And it's going to be a full length documentary, but we put out a 3-minute teaser of what we talked about so far.
Wow.
So that was an incredible
Yeah, man. I
opportunity.
mean, for that company to even, that's a big company.
Yeah, and
Like,
they've never done that with anyone in the city. They've
wow.
never reached out to anyone like we were the first to ever do that.
When I lived in Miami, I went to Aventura Mall and they had a Cartier store, and I'm from here,
Hmm.
so I go into this store and I'm like, y'all got a store?
Right.
Like they had other jewelry.
Hmm.
I thought Cartier was just some glasses, bro.
Wow. Yeah.
That's I guarantee you, the people who listen probably think the same way.
Yeah. Especially from the city.
Yeah,
Like,
because
from the city for sure.
did you ever see a Cartier watch?
No, not like that. And like we wear Rolexes in Detroit. Like we really didn't wear their watches, wristwear like that.
Like we were known for if you went to prom, you had some Cartiers on and some Gators.
Some Gators. Yep.
You know, that's a
And
real.
if you can get one of your Uncle Rolexes or something like that, you was able to shine with that too.
Anybody
Yeah.
did a documentary on Gators?
In the city?
There you
No.
go.
Yeah, that's something like we got to tell that narrative, those stories, because
Mm-hmm.
we let other people tell our stories, and then we get mad at how we look or whatever.
Right.
Like these people don't say pop; they say soda. Like
Right.
I've never drank a soda. I've had
I had
plenty of pop
Right.
in my life, but it's just like we have to control that narrative and continue to telling those stories. So that's why I'm big on doing the interviews. Even like comedian Kool-Aid, who was like a mentor of ours with the comedy show, who helped expose me to comedy by coming to Oak Park High School, my senior year and doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, man, I like that. Then I got to meet him later on with radio and working with Josh, and he started coming to our comedy shows. And the opportunities he gave to a lot of the comedians in the city of Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
bringing in big name comedians and able to put the Michigan local comedians on the same stage as a Little Rail or a Carlos Miller or all these, big name people.
Mm-hmm.
And just being a good dude. Like he was a OG in the city of Detroit. So part of telling our stories, like he passed away in 2018 with cancer.
Mm.
But I was like, he needs to be remembered, so he needs to be immortalized. So we were able to commission and do a mural at Baker's Keyboard Lounge of comedian Kool-Aid. And you can, go to the
And you spearheaded that project?
yeah. I put everything together. I got with
Mm.
Syntex, the graffiti muralist, and we came up with the design how we wanted it to look.
Mm.
And created comediankoolaid.com where you can actually go to the website and learn about him as well. That's on the mural, as well as a QR code. You scan it, you can go to the website, check out who he was as a person, see some of his stand-up performances and his impact on the culture and the comedy scene here in the city of Detroit.
And that's dope, man. You may be the Detroit storyteller.
Man,
That's
hey,
your,
man.
they're your brand. You the Detroit storyteller. Who next? What's next?
Yeah, a storyteller from Detroit, I
Yeah.
like to say. So yeah, that's I'm big on that because I was leaving Denver, coming to Detroit, and there was a guy that was in line about to get on the plane with me. He was like, "Oh, okay, so where you headed?" I'm like, I'm going to Detroit. He was like, "Oh, I got a layover in Detroit. Why are you going to Detroit?" I said, "Cause that's where my bed is. That's where I'm from. That's
Right.
the city." And like I don't like that disdain that other people from around the world, oh, Detroit, oh, it's a
Yeah.
horrible place. Like we're some of the most brilliant people in the world here. And just anytime we get the exposure or the opportunity, we always seize it. Like you can even look at like little small stuff like Flavor of Love. Like
Yeah.
the two winners of Flavor of Love were from the city of Detroit.
Right.
Why? Because whenever we get opportunities, we kill it from the lack thereof opportunities. So it's like, and we're going to shine out, and we're going to shine whatever opportunity we have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, man, the world needs to know this. So we have to start telling these stories. So that's the journey I'm
Well,
on.
too, it's been again, like I told you earlier, about trauma is not always a bad thing, and we've had a lot of traumatic events happen in our city.
Yeah.
I remember being younger and hearing about Malice Green.
Yeah.
Everybody know Rodney King's story,
Yeah,
but nobody know Malice Green's story.
true.
He was killed
True.
by the police. So, but the people don't know that story.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of trauma, but at that same time, that trauma can help us move from, again, I say this all the time, post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so with us, we like to, help the people in our city to change that energy and move that energy from that stressor to that thing that's gonna help you elevate and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I lived out of the state for six years, and every time I told somebody else from Detroit, they looked like they want to give me a hug.
Right.
I'm like, what do you think? This bullets are just flying by me
Right.
just while I'm walking down the street?
No,
Like,
I've never been shot before. God.
right.
Like, yeah.
So, but I had a great childhood. I keep saying that. I had my street. I loved my
From
street.
the east side of Detroit.
From the east side of Detroit. And I'm tired of people making fun of the east side of Detroit. Like, it's just the most horrific places. But you can go anywhere in the world and somewhere got a hood.
Yeah, yeah.
I went to Orlando and I was like, where they hood at? And I looked at their hood and I was like, this the hood.
Yeah, anywhere you go with lack of resources or opportunities to grow or education, like you're going to see a hood or you're going to see poverty.
Right.
So it's just like, but that has no.
And they have their gyms too.
Yeah, definitely.
And
definitely.
I feel like we have more gyms than we do
Yeah.
bad things, but we like to focus on the bad things, you know?
Another reason why, and we have some of the most creative people. Creativity is made out of necessity.
Yeah.
Like it's made out of necessity. Like why? Like during soul food was created because of the lack of the food.
It's about resourcefulness.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it's about.
Yeah.
We have to be resourceful
Yeah.
because we have lack.
Yeah.
So we make the best of what we have.
Yeah.
And that's, you said something early on about when Kev on stage was talking about if you start your podcast, whatever, like start off, if just make the best of it, what you got.
Mm-hmm.
I started the podcast in my basement, bro. I did a couple episodes in the basement, man. I got all this equipment. Then I was like, man, let me go check on this studio. But I started off like that, and it was cool.
Yeah.
It was fine. And I started my business like that too. I had like 1,100 square feet. I had one piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And now people see what you got, and they're like, how did you do this?
Yeah.
Resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And consistency.
Yeah. Every beautiful flower has to get in the dirt first, right?
Mm.
But the seed has to be planted.
Right.
So in order for you to get the praise and get the notoriety and the views that you want, you have to plant that seed. And it's not always pretty. You're in the dirt. Like, you're in the dirt, then that dirt gets watered, then it turns into mud. Then eventually, after consistency and the sun shines its light on it, you get a beautiful flower. So
Right.
that is needed with whatever you're doing, whatever brand or whatever you're is that consistency and using the resources that you have at that time to eventually somebody say, you know what? I got a studio for you to come over here and record your podcast in.
Right.
And be willing to work with you. So, but you have to start, like you're saying.
And the stories, like you said earlier, the storytelling, that's become a really big thing for really society. It seems like we're all becoming these brands, and we all watching somebody's and listen to somebody's story. So talk about that. What do you think? Where is that driving us to?
You're talking about everybody want to have
But
their
just we all looking at each other's stories. Like, we all creating podcasts. We're all, it's like we're all on the real world in a sense. Like, what does that do for us though, mentally, emotionally? I'm not sure yet, so I don't know how you can answer that question.
I think you have to be mindful of what how you program, not only what you eat, but what you intake, or what you watching, what you're viewing. So you have to do you have to be a good judge of what you're intaking and what you're putting in your mental. So just limiting it and just not watching just everything just because it's on TV. And I feel like the good will rise to the top. Like, everybody got a podcast, but everybody isn't going to be as consistent as you. Everybody isn't going to do the work and get the right guests and get the right people on the actual podcast in order to make it grow and make it turn into that flower that we mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think that's I'm not really worried about it. Just be mindful of what I intake and what I watch, and just have a good balance. It's cool to watch a little ratchet TV, but also have something that's going you're going to be able to grow from.
Yeah. Well, bro, I appreciate you coming on, man. And like you said, it's about the consistency of it, man. And again, we talked about consistency. We talked about traumas that you experience, and even though you experience traumas, there's going to be ways that you can overcome those things.
Facts.
You're going to have lack.
Facts.
And there's going to be ways that you can overcome that lack.
Facts.
I think that no matter what anybody's circumstance is, there is always some support along the way if you keep along the journey. And you've come in and you've supported me, and I always appreciate that. And, man, I consider you my brother.
Likewise. And like you said, whatever you go through, it just adds to a greater story.
Absolutely. Until next time, guys.
You've been listening to the Inner Wealth Podcast on EYL.
Get out the matrix and live.
Theme song produced by Be Ready for West Coast Creations. I am Razcast, reminding you to take action, be proactive, be congruent, get out of the matrix, get your mind right. We've automated mental health at inception. Join the movement. Inner Wealth Podcast. Inner Wealth Podcast. Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.